Hey, how's it going, everyone? So today we're going to be going over pre-foreclosures and what we're able to offer them, what you really need to know about the process, and everything. So during this process, we offered 7 main options for them during this situation. Well, really the first 2 options are for them to keep the property. We don't really make money in this scenario, which is a small hook to pull them in and to actually have a conversation. But you still gotta find out and clarify the problem before you let them know this, because we can't let anyone know their solutions unless we know why we're talking to them exactly. So you gotta know the closer framework that we'll be going over in a later video, so you guys can be good salesmen during all the processes for pre-foreclosures, tired landlords, direct agent, or whatever. But for this, we're focusing on pre-foreclosures. But you got to know you can't bring all the solutions. You're just finding out their problem, and then you're letting them know which are the best solutions for them in their situation. So you got to be able to identify what's truly going on in their life personally to suit their needs. For a loan modification, what they truly need to apply for it is call the mortgage company is the first step. And then they're gonna need some W-2 documents, pay stubs, a reason why they're actually in this situation. Do they have like a hardship letter? And what's the debt to income looking like in the complete household, so they're able to pretty much take the arrears in the pre-foreclosure and then move that back into the back of the mortgage, which pretty much will reduce the payment for now, but they're going to be paying a more longer interest rate over the long run. But it is a great short-term benefit for these sellers, possibly, and they can keep the home over the long run, or they can just modify it and we can buy it still, which is really good. But you got to be careful with that, as there are some legality things, and you got to make sure you don't say we're gonna be buying a property unless it gets approved for a loan modification, which is illegal. So be careful with that. And then we got a personal loan. Pretty much we have them reach out to all their friends and family, or maybe we can recommend them a lender, which really never works for them because it's a way higher interest rate, unless they have a good amount of equity in their home for it to actually truly make sense for them to get a personal lender. But their best bet is friends and family first, so recommend that. And then the third option would be to list the property, and you can refer them a top realtor in the area, which could be my dad if we're in Michigan. But if we're in other states, we can find top realtor brokers that can pay us on referrals, and we all still can get paid. Then those options, listing the property is a weird option overall, because they don't, like, depending on what state you're in, like Michigan, we have 4 weeks for an auction date. We're a non-judicial state here, so like for non-judicial, the lender doesn't have to let the seller know, well, like the homeowner, that pretty much that they're going into pre-foreclosure. They find out when they go into the auction date, and I most of the time let them know that they're going into pre-foreclosure, because they don't find out till something comes in the mail or is posted on their door. So sometimes we're the notifiers, so you got to be aware of that as well. So listing the property, the thing about it is it takes a long time to actually get it sold, and within a 4-week time frame, it's hard unless it's a really hot market that can sell in one day on a cash offer, quick closing. And then as well, it's tough because then you can go into the redemption period overall, which sometimes makes sense, but I overall do not recommend it to people, because why wouldn't you want to save your credit, get money in your pocket still right now, and not deal with so much time wasted and move on to the next chapter of their lives? So you still need to figure out what their true needs are and see if it does make sense. And in some states, in judicial states, it's a way longer process where it can be like 6 to 8 months, because the lender has to go through a judge process, and then this homeowner finds out, and they have more preparation time. And listing it could make more sense for them. So you got to know what's truly going on, especially if you're targeting a judicial or a non-judicial state. You got to know what's going on who you're targeting, who's your client. So be aware. Then we can offer them cash offer, which typically is more discounted, obviously. So this could make more sense for people who are in pre-foreclosure, but have a lot of equity, because the no equity people, we can make a cash offer, but the cash offer won't even pay their mortgage balance off and get any money in their pocket. So you got to identify what's going on with the mortgage balance and what we have to pay to them, what payment is on that, what's the amortization, has there been appreciation, how long have they owned this property. So does the cash offer truly make sense, or can you go straight to the creative finance offer and let them know this could be the best option to get the highest price and make the most sense for you? So we can do subject to, where we take over their mortgage, continue to make the payments, pay the arrears that they're behind on. Or we can do, well, you can't really do seller finance, but you can do a hybrid in this situation, which you can do SubTo, you take over the mortgage, and then you create a second lien position where we're gonna give them a down payment and a monthly payment over a period of time. But you have to make sure there's cash flow always. And it could possibly be a Morby method if there's high equity, but they still need a high down payment and they're not comfortable with subject to. So you gotta know when you deploy certain strategies. And overall, Morby methods are a last resort. You don't let a seller know this as a first step. You gotta let that know as a last step, because you gotta let them go through the process and hear what we have to offer to then show them this is the final resort they're gonna have. So this is a process. You gotta know when to time things and notice things in a conversation. So overall now, we made all our creative offers and cash and gave them their options here. Now these are the worst options overall for them, which is a short sale. They could possibly get a little money in their pocket, but it still ruins their credit more and is like a longer process a little bit, but it is better than bankruptcy. So if none of the creative options or saving their property works, we're gonna offer them to do a short sale, which would pretty much take the payments that they're behind on and we'd pay those off, and it's really complicated, and we'll be going over that in a different video for you to understand on a deeper level. But then, let's say that doesn't work and it doesn't make sense for their situation, we'll be giving them a referral for an attorney that is a master at bankruptcy, or just like foreclosure situations, to make sure all their needs are suited to the best. And we don't want to lead to any worst case scenarios, and we want to, even though bankruptcy is the worst, there still can be some good out of it for the sellers, because they can file for different things and there's different benefits with each one. So those are the main things we're able to provide to a seller, but you also got to be aware of what's going on. So we got a sheriff sale and a trustee sale. Those are the same thing. Really, it depends on what state you're in, like Arizona versus Michigan. Arizona is a trustee state, and then you got to know what judicial versus non-judicial is. Like Michigan is a non-judicial, and we just put people into auction and we don't even let the sellers know. They don't really care. And it's not a need overall in the judicial system, but we got to stay like Georgia and like Atlanta area. They're judicial and they need a lender to be notified, notifying the judge overall, and then they can notify the seller, and then the pre-foreclosure process begins, which will take way longer for a sale. And then you gotta know what is going on with the seller's mortgage. Is it an FHA, a VA, a conventional? Because there's different kinds of regulations and different things we need to be aware of for different kinds of loans, and there's different structurings. As VA loans, they could put 0% down, and that's why they have no equity. FHA is 3.5%, which is not a lot of equity in there either if they're selling it in a short time frame. And we got to be aware of fraud and different things to make sure the paperwork is done correctly. As well, we got to know if it's a conventional loan, because those are honestly the best loans and are the safest overall to avoid mortgage fraud and different things. But this is the overall overview of a pre-foreclosure process, and hope you guys have some questions and we can go deeper and further as we grow together.